Good morning, everyone. Britt Simon here. Hope your weekend has got off to a good start. Happy Saturday morning to you. Going to be doing a session here, a live session, taking some questions, hopefully providing some good answers, and we'll see where we get to. I do want to. There's Roberto. A universal right. Roberto, just give me a sound check, would you? Is the sound coming through clearly? That would be good to know. I forgot to check it as I came in. That would be good. Anyway, you're the funniest guy. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So, Britt, you have never talked about Tanzania Embassy. What do you think, since it only interviewed 5 people to date? It's so funny when people say things like, I've never talked about Tanzania Embassy. I've been doing this for since 2013. It's now 2025. You think in the whole 12 years, I've never talked about Tanzania Embassy? Is that really what you think? Come on. Okay, so there are some embassies that are very quiet in terms of processing. That doesn't necessarily mean they've got a problem, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, let's just take an embassy that's on my mind right now, Bucharest. I think Bucharest has interviewed maybe, I don't know, half a dozen people at most, 2 or 3 even, in terms of cases, I should say. But if that's all they had to do, that's not a problem, right? So, you need to first of all think whether Tanzania or any other embassy is doing the work they have to do, not whether you think it's busy enough for your liking or not. Right? It's got nothing to do with that. So let's have a look at the data. I have created a way that you can look at this data and analyze the data and do exactly the same thing I'm doing here. But no, you just think I've just never talked about anything. So anyway, share screen. This one. Right. So if you had followed my advice, you wouldn't need to ask the question. You would go in here and you'd say, okay, how many is Tanzania actually scheduled? How many should they have scheduled, and so on? And you can see that, yes, they're backlogged, right? I don't know why they're backlogged, but they are certainly backlogged. But you can also see the trend is up. In the first 5 months of scheduling, they scheduled 5 cases. In January, they scheduled 10 cases. In February, they scheduled 25 cases. In other words, they started very badly, but they are improving, okay? It's a fairly simple thing to see. You don't need to ask me these questions and pretend like I've never spoken about it before. You can see, what's happening there. Now, you can also figure out, what does that mean in terms of if they were to keep up, and we don't know what capacity they're going to keep up, but if they kept up the capacity at 25 a month, let's say from now on, how many cases would they get through? And again, I've shown how to do this. I've shown a video that shows how to do this. Let's say their average is around about 7 cases. So 7 cases would be 3.5. So they would be able to move about 3.5, maybe 4,000 numbers per month, right? So if they kept up that capacity at 25, they would move, around about 3,000 to 4,000 case numbers per month, roughly speaking. Does that get you to where you need to be for your particular situation? I don't know. You can think about that. Is it possible that they reduce this capacity? Yeah, absolutely. Is it possible they increase the capacity? Yep, it is. Right? So, you could have done the same thing without my help, but, feel free to complain. Okay, so what are my predictions for Asia 2025? Well, I guess you could look in the predictions video that I did for Asia for 2025. You could do that. People have asked me, which I think is a legitimate question. I published the videos, one per region, back in early January, right? And so you can go and have a look at what my predictions were for Asia or Africa or EU or any other country, any other region. But some people have legitimately asked me since then, oh, we see this processing or we see that processing, or the visa bulletin is doing this or it's doing that. And have you changed your numbers? And I did also explain, I'm sure, in some of these videos, that I won't change my numbers based on a month here or a month there. My view is to the end game, not how we get there. It doesn't matter to me a damn whether they go fast on 1 month and slow the next month and then fast on 1 month, as long as they get to the right place, right? So I'm not particularly worried that Asia, rest of Asia, got sort of slowed down, if you like, on the last VB. I'm suspecting that they will increase Asia pretty well in the next visa bulletin, which will be released in the coming week. But we'll have to wait and see. I don't know for a fact. Now, there is obviously a concern about what Trump is going to do. It seems more and more likely that he is going to implement a travel ban. And if he does, it will affect the region of Asia more than other regions, right? It will affect Africa too. And to put it this way, if you're within a region and some people within that region suddenly become banned, but you're not banned, then it's a good thing for you in a sense. And that's a very cruel way to look at it. But it's a very good thing for you if you're not banned and other people are, because they are unable to be in front of you, right? If they are banned. Now, travel bans are bans on entry, not bans on issuance, okay? So the people who are banned by travel bans can choose to be processed anyway. They can attend their interviews and they can choose to have their visa issued with the hope that they would be able to enter the country later on, that the ban would be removed later. And that would be the most sensible choice for most people in that position. However, there will be some people, no doubt, who will look at the travel ban on their country and look at other challenges and say, hey, between the travel ban and security, increased security, there's no point in wasting my time and money on the interview. And so it will decrease the number of interviews that are actually performed, not scheduled, they'll be scheduled, but the interviews will be reduced in terms of attendance because some people just won't turn up for their interview in the case of a ban, okay? So that whole conversation is probably worth a video in its own right, to be honest, to explain my thoughts on that. But we have been through this before, so we have a pretty good understanding, I think, of what will happen in various cases. What we don't have at the moment is a travel ban, and so I keep getting emails and not emails, but messages from people that say, "What about the ban? What about the ban? Has things changed?" And I keep responding to people, there's no freaking ban at the moment, right? And so you're asking me, what will happen, or what will happen into my country, or how will I be able to enter on this date or whatever? And you're not taking into account that there is no ban. And so when there is no ban, there's no point discussing the terms of that ban that hasn't been published yet, right? It could be like the one we saw before. And if it is, we'll be able to interpret that and give you the answers and tell you pretty quickly how that will be operated. If it's different to how it was before, we'll need to analyze that and think about that, okay? So just, relax, chill. I know it's not a great thing. It's difficult to relax when you've got a madman at the White House. He's not a madman. He's just a stupid man. And, it's been a complete shit show for the last 8 weeks. It's been complete chaos. So I don't anticipate anything like a ban will be implemented any better than the clown show that we've seen so far, in the first few weeks of the Trump presidency. It's probably going to be another screw up of monumental proportions. So, let's wait until it happens before sort of panicking about it. Okay. Welcome, Philip. Thank you for giving me the sound check. Thank you, Dominic. 42K Nairobi, still holding on hope. Let's talk about Nairobi for a moment. Nairobi disappointed me, I have to say. They are they're building a bigger mountain for them to climb up later. They may have no intention. Thank you, Anne. They may have no intention to climb that mountain. We don't know. They may not be saying to themselves, like I hope they're saying to themselves, okay, we're going to not process DV this month. We're not going to, we'll just add those to the pile and we'll be able to clear up the pile later. That's what I hope they're doing, but they may not be doing that. And every month they go by, there's more and more risk. So you have to decide what's best for you. If you're at 42K, you're probably not going to go current this month. That would be my guess, right? But so you can probably afford to wait another couple of weeks. But at 42K in Nairobi, I would be saying, okay, I'm going to watch the next visa bulletin. I'm going to watch for 2NLs just after the visa bulletin. And if they haven't, if Nairobi haven't pulled their finger out by then, I'm probably going to move. That's the way I'm beginning to feel at your case number. You've got a much tougher choice at something like Africa 35,000, because you are likely to go current. I think we'll see Africa go current to about 35, 36,000. So you're more likely to go current this month coming in the next week. And once you're current and your DS-260 is processed, you're going to be locked into that embassy. It's much harder to change from that point. Before you're current, you can unlock your DS-260, change your address, and that is still the most reliable way to change your interview location, by changing your address, by actually moving to another country, and that's where you would be interviewed. That's still the most reliable way. There is the new policy that was introduced a year and a half ago or something, a year ago, which talks to physical presence, but that is not 100% reliably in place in all embassies and all the time at KCC. It works for some people, it doesn't work for others, basically. It doesn't work in all cases. So what does work in the vast majority of cases is KCC will make a decision about where you should be scheduled, not based on what you picked in your DS-260, but your current location as shown in your DS-260. That's how they want to operate. That's basically playing into their normal programming, as it were. So that's why it's the most reliable way to get changed. Even then, it doesn't work 100% of the time. Sometimes you'll change your address and they'll still schedule you at the wrong embassy. But we're talking about what works in the majority of cases, right? Anyway, let me know if you need more information about that. Here's a typical question. Hi, Simon, what about the new travel ban? No freaking travel ban. Yusuf, there is no travel ban, right? And if you want to know about the travel ban that hasn't happened yet, you'd be expecting me to read the minds of the Trump administration Muppets that are putting this ban together, right? If you become one of ban-listed countries and visas are issued, can it worth to travel? So it depends on the terms of the travel ban, which hasn't happened yet, right? That's why it's a difficult question to answer, right? Okay. Greetings from France. Do you think a ban? Oh, there we go. Do you think a ban would lead to better chances to get the visa for high case numbers of non-banned countries? Yeah, I did already explain that. That's true, Stefan. That's how it works. But a ban would be bad news for some, terrible news for some, and good news for high case numbers that were not from banned countries. Hey, Simon, my case number is EU19K Yerevan. What do you think when my case will become current, and what do you think about Yerevan's performance this year? So you're probably going to become current either in this visa bulletin, there's a possibility of that, or if not, certainly the visa bulletin behind. As for when you'll become current, etc., you should probably go have a look. Go have a look using the system that I show. Right? I've just realised I've not been showing you my beautiful face for a few minutes. Okay. Hi Simon, I am from AD and my case number is 26900. When will be my 2NL? Any day. Could be any moment. I mean, you're current. Your embassy is doing well. You'll probably get your 2NL in about 2 weeks' time, not even 2 weeks' time. You could even get it this week. So the visa bulletin will be published, And pretty much immediately after the visa bulletin, they start. Let me just go back to the question. The visa bulletin will be published this week, right? Probably Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. And the moment it's published, we have the potential to see 2NLs. And the first 2NLs we see typically are for the A letter A embassies, Accra, Addis, and so on. And so, you could have your 2NL by Friday, basically. What about Asia 2025, 19,000 chance? Watch my video. What about my case is 55K? Will it be safe or risk? Again, watch the video, the prediction video. You're at the beginning of a risky range. I don't think it's particularly risky, but watch my Africa prediction video to understand. And you're very lucky, young WMD Mohammed, that only Africa has case numbers at that range. Otherwise, you'd have got an angel killed for not giving me your region. Hello, Britt. Hearing you loud and clear from Kenya. Great. Is Dar es Salaam embassy going to reach 40K with current trending? We already talked about it. Hi, Simon. 30K from Somalia. How about the Trump ban could affect lottery? It's very likely that Somalia is affected by any travel ban. There's rumors about Afghanistan being included. Iran's almost certain to be included. The ban will be based on several factors, like if there is a ban, right? It'll be based on several factors, such as the position of that country's attitude towards America. If that's super aggressive towards America vis-a-vis Iran, then that's an obvious case for Iran to be banned. If terrorism activities have happened in that country, which includes a number of countries, or terrorists have come from that country and been active elsewhere, particularly where they've been a threat to American citizens, then that would be another reason to consider banning that country. Where a country doesn't have good systems or refuses to cooperate well with America in terms of providing data about its people, that could be a reason to ban some countries. And some of those things could be fixable, obviously, like the third one I mentioned could be fixable, but not overnight. So sometimes they might, for example, put a country on the travel ban list and give them time to fix their systems, or at least to promise to fix their systems. And that's what happened in the case of Chad, for example. They were put on the travel ban list for a 90-day period. They were later removed from the travel ban because the threat to them had been, you'll be on a ban until you can fix your systems. They showed willing in terms of fixing their systems and providing better information to America. And so therefore they were unbanned. That's how Trump implemented at least one part of the ban previously, right? So we don't know what Trump is going to do this time. There was an interesting article which Ronnie, a friend of ours in the community, who's usually full of shit, but in this case he posted a fairly useful article. Dear Ronnie, you do drive me nuts, but anyway. But he posted a pretty interesting article. In fact, I can show it because I was just reading it. It's this article. And it gave details about the preparations being made for a travel ban, allegedly. This is by a couple of reporters who have been doing some investigation. It was published yesterday. You can go find this. It's by Charlie Savage and Edward Wong. Hopefully he's not Wong about this one. No, hopefully he is Wong about this one. That's a terrible joke. He said the proposed red list. So there's a color coding. Anyway, the proposed color coding has red, yellow, green, I think, or red, amber, yellow, or something like that. And this one mentions that last time banned countries included Cuba, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Venezuela, and Yemen. Yes, that's all true. The draft, they say that there's something being drafted, tentatively proposes adding Afghanistan. there's been lots of rumors about bans, but this is a pretty well researched article, so it could well be correct. And it then mentions, it mentions the orange group of countries whose access would be curtailed but not completely barred, right? For example, only certain types of visas might be issued. Is DV one of those visas? I don't know. They may be talking about non-immigrant visas, right? So, we don't know. So there's a red, orange, and yellow category. The yellow category is that similarity to Chad, right, where the country is given 60 days to change some perceived deficiencies, or they would be added to the lists, right? So that's all of that is well-researched speculation, is the way I would put that. That is not the travel ban. That is well-researched speculation about what the travel ban could contain. They're definitely working with inside sources. But that is not to say that Trump will go ahead and pull the trigger on something, or that the ban would even stay in place if implemented, because previous bans were challenged in courts of law and successfully removed. And Trump honestly is, he's been going back and forth on things like a tart's knickers. He was going to tariff Mexico and Canada, then he wasn't, then he did. Then he wasn't, and he did a bit, and then he didn't. And it's like the level of stupidity going on in Washington D.C. at Pennsylvania Avenue at the moment is almost categorically unbelievable to observe. It's just a complete clown show. Many of Trump's executive orders have been blocked and revoked almost immediately. Loads of them. I mean, it's just you can't have a more pathetic display of bullshit and stupidity. Doge, you got Musk running around like a monkey, and allegedly firing people but he has no authority to fire people, and now Marco Rubio's all pissed off with Musk. I mean, the whole thing is just a complete shit show. Anyway. There you go. So could Somalia be in the ban if the ban is implemented? Yeah, it could be, if the ban is implemented. By the way, about the timing of the ban, Trump became president on January the 20th, and pretty early on, I think on day one, he asked for a report to be given within 60 days. So some people have said March 20th is when the ban will start. Okay, so March 20th is the deadline for him to have the report. And clearly the ban is being put together, right? And so in theory, yes, they could issue a travel ban on March 20th or very, very close behind that. But it's not a guarantee that that's the day that a ban will start, okay? So do everything you can. If you're from one of the countries, by the way, and you're holding a visa from one of those countries, then get your freaking ass to America right now. Don't wait for March 20th. Every day you waste sitting there on your ass, just being happily looking at your printed visa rather than getting your ass to America is a stupid day you spent, right? If you get a visa and you're from one of those countries that could be banned, get your ass to America. That's the first thing. If you have an interview coming up in the next couple of weeks and you don't fully prepare, then you're a moron and you don't deserve the bloody visa anyway. You have to go to your appointments fully prepared, particularly if you're on this potential ban list, right? Because if you're in a situation, we don't know what the ban, if it's implemented, will say, but you could be in a situation where it could say, if you've already got a visa, you won't be affected. And if you aren't making every attempt to get your visa, then you're a bloody idiot, frankly. And so going unprepared to an interview that's like this coming week, when a ban is potentially looming, would be the act of an idiot. And I'm sorry to be so blunt, but honestly, some of you don't think straight. So do the best you can for yourself. Right? If you get a immigrant visa, get your ass to America. Once you've got a green card, you haven't got a problem. So get yourself, or not even got a green card, just being an LPR, just entering the USA with your immigrant visa is enough to protect you from any of this ban bullshit. So get your ass there, okay? Oh dear. Anyway, hi Simon, thanks for all the advices. Do you think that Algeria will be one of the banned countries? I don't know. Hi Brit, someone unlocked their DS260 3 times. Can this possibly have an impact on when the interview schedule will be? Basically, I always tell people DS260 reopening doesn't affect the processing. It certainly doesn't affect the scheduling. Now, that's a bit glib, if you want to look up that word. It's a bit of a glib statement. There are some scenarios where the timing of when you unlock the thing could be just enough to maybe cause a problem with scheduling. Up until a few years ago, up until about, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, if people wanted to delay scheduling of their case, the method I would tell them to use is to unlock their DS260 and leave it unlocked. Because if they did that at that time, and I'm not saying now, but at that time, if they had an unlocked DS260, fully processed but unlocked, then KCC wouldn't schedule that case. However, a few years ago that changed, and we started to see them actually scheduling cases which were unlocked at the time. So the locking or unlocking doesn't really affect the scheduling, in terms of reality since a few years ago. The question is, does it cause reprocessing? And really, you need to sort of use some common sense. If you add a baby, if you just had a baby, you added a baby to your forms, etc. Why the heck do you think they would be doing background checks on a baby, right? A baby doesn't get any sort of concerns in terms of this baby could be a terror baby, right? There's no terrorist babies, right? So there's no question that baby is running around creating nuclear rockets or anything else. So there's no need to background check the damn baby, right? And the American government are pretty smart, and they're not wasting a lot of money doing background checks on babies. I can promise you that. So, well, I say the American government. Prior to January 20th of this year, the American government were pretty smart. So adding a baby isn't a concern. Modifying the address of a school you attended 30 years ago, nobody gives a crap, right? That isn't a concern. That's not going to cause any reprocessing. Now, if you marry someone and that person wasn't previously on your case, of course, and now you've married someone, that person's a full-grown adult that has a whole history of their own. And if that person's name is Osama bin Laden and that person is a nuclear rocket scientist, then yeah, that's probably going to cause some delay, right? It's just common sense, folks. It really is just common sense. Just a little bit of common sense would tell you that yes, in some cases, unlocking can cause a delay if there's a good reason to cause reprocessing to happen on either your case or an added spouse, for example. Okay. So unlock away if you need to. Now, on the converse side of that, by the way, don't unlock for stupid reasons. There's no reason to unlock for some of the things that people are unlocking for. And if you've unlocked 3 times, what the hell are you doing? Why did you have to unlock? If you change your job, you used to be, up until last week you were a dentist and now you're a barber or something. Nobody gives a crap. You're going to leave that job anyway. You're moving to America shortly, right? So you don't need to update every time you change your job. You don't need to update because you said you were studying for your master's and now you've completed it. You don't need to do that. You don't need to update because you spelt the address wrong on the school you attended 30 years ago. You don't need to update that, right? So, just use a little bit of, sparticle particles to figure out what should and shouldn't be unlocked for, okay? What do you think of DV26? Already been done in which month? In December. Later to be announced in May. Yeah, it was done in December. So, does that make you happy now? Like, does it matter? when the draw actually happens. Always wonder why people ask. What they do is they draw early, just after the entry period has happened, and then they spend time between December and May processing the cases, creating the holes, essentially disqualifying a bunch of cases. They go through a number of iterations of getting rid of cases. We've seen notes being passed back and forth within the government due to FOIA requests, where they've been discussing adding some cases, taking some cases, all sorts of stuff. So we know that they do this processing at this time of the year, and and that processing we know starts pretty early in January, if not in December. So the draw happens in December, and the results are only announced in May, but between December and May, all sorts of processing has been done. Okay, Bulusir from Fiji awaiting 2NL. OC 17, no, you're not 17XXX, you're 17XX. Your OC doesn't go to 17,000, it goes to 1,007, well, it goes to 4,000 or something, 3,800. So your OC 17 asterisk. Any idea when I get the 2NL? Well, you're pretty close, but what we might see, Oceania has gone ahead of itself in terms of the visa bulletin number. So it wouldn't be a shock to me at all to see it go very slowly for a couple of months. It also wouldn't be a shock, frankly, if it got another fairly big jump. I mean, OC it doesn't really matter, right? The 55,000 number is not affected by what happens in little old Oceania, right? So they have a little bit of freedom. I don't think they pay a lot of attention to that. Whether they go 1,700, 1,800, or whether they stay, at current numbers, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But relax, be patient. There's plenty of time, and you've got a good number. I want to increase the number of bulletins in Asia. You want to increase the number of bulletins. You want to have, what, 2 bulletins a month? But I'm worried that it will reach 19,700. Why would more bulletins? You mean you... I'm sorry, I shouldn't tease anymore. I know what you mean. So I shouldn't tease. You're worried that whether it will reach 19,700 in Asia. Yep, go watch my prediction video, and I'll explain why that's a risky number. But travel ban. So I did make clear in all of my prediction videos that the factor I was not going to put in terms of my estimations, because it's too big a factor to try and figure out, was travel bans. Travel bans will make a difference, particularly in Asia and Africa, and they could also make a difference in Europe, but less so directly. But Europe could benefit from an impact to Africa and Asia, right? So it's very complex, and we don't know which countries would be banned, if at all. We don't know the terms of the bans, if at all. And so my prediction videos excluded that as a factor, right? So if there are bans, then those prediction videos will look like pessimistic predictions in some cases, right? We'll see higher number ranges in some cases. Oh, look at that. My wife said, I wonder if you can read that. Now, my wife bought me this coffee. It's official, you're awesome, that says, right? I must be. It must be true. My wife thinks so. Hi, Britt. Does the beneficiary fill his part on the I-134 with a pen? Because the sponsor fills in his information and sends them to the beneficiary when it's a no edit mode, hard copy. Okay, so I just did a video on the I-134. I did, right? I just did the video. And the new I-134 is mainly to be filled out by the sponsor, right? There is a section, I think it's section 4, that is available to be filled out by the beneficiary, but there's no need for the beneficiary to list the number of kids or income and that sort of thing. And section 4 is really only supposed to be signed by the beneficiary when the beneficiary is acting as their own sponsor. It's a slightly different use of the form. So you don't really need to worry about it. In DV cases, you don't need to worry about it. And I don't think there's very much, if anything, that the beneficiary actually has to fill out for a DV case usage of the form. So yeah, don't worry about it. But what you normally do is the sponsor will modify the form online if they want, or they can fill it in with black ink. It says clearly first thing on top of the form, and then they scan that form with the signatures. Obviously, they scan the form after they've signed it, etc., and email it to you. If there is information you have to add to it, you would just add that in pen. You wouldn't try and reload that into PDF reader. Okay. Hi dear, when do you think 34K Morocco case number would be current? I don't know. We'll have to see whether it's going to be this current coming VB. Probably not. It's probably another VB. There was a slightly weird thing that happened at Casablanca. Obviously, they did cancel a bunch of interviews, or rather reschedule them. They've rescheduled them, I think, for April and May. We don't know for a fact that means that they won't have any capacity in April. We'll have to wait and see whether they do or not. But clearly they did something, presumably because of IR visas. Don't know. May have been the case that it was for IR, or it may be staff shortages at Casablanca due to sickness, or whoever knows. We just don't know. They don't, strangely enough, all keep in contact with me. All the embassies don't contact me and let me know how they're doing on a month-to-month basis. Weird, I know, but I wish they would, but they don't. JC as in Jesus, the other guy. What can I advance as reason to move to another embassy like Kigali and avoid the Nairobi backlog? The best reason is that you've moved. Okay, if you feel you've got good reason, then you can state it, right? And you can say, well, I'm going to be in this other country at that time for the rest of the year because of this training course I'm on, or something like that. You can try and win that argument if you want, but it's far simpler, frankly, to just move there, right? We'll have to, you just have to accept my advice to that. I think that is the best way of transferring. It's not always going to work, but if you've got a real reason, what you shouldn't do, by the way, is make up some bullshit reason. Please don't do that. It's a really bad idea. So asking people what is a good reason, what's worked for them, it's not really a good idea at all, because you should not make up a lie. There's really no reason for you to try and make up a lie that they could then that lie can come back to haunt you, and you look like a dishonest person in front of the CO. That's a bad idea. Okay. Your prediction for 50K Morocco? No predictions on that, I'm afraid. Cielo, hi Simon. Nothing is official yet, but by the rumors of potential ban by Trump, it includes a red list. Yep, very large. So, yep. Thank you. Yeah, know that. We are who? What? Who are? Oh God. We who are in Kenya, do we have any chance? We who are in Kenya, do we have any chance? We have to wait and see, Michael. I don't know. I know you want reassuring words from me. I know you want guesses and everything else from me, but honestly, I don't know. So I don't want to promise you that I leave it to other YouTubers to make up silly promises. I don't want to do that. Okay. Lemek. Hi, Mr. Simon. Do you think there is an introduction of a gold card? Do you think it's going to replace the DV lottery? Elaborate more on the gold card. The gold card is a fever dream of Trump. It's just that if I had a dog that could talk, I would be more likely to listen to the dog than I would be to Trump. And honestly, I don't know why people are confused about that at the moment. Like, Trump just says bullshit and people lap it up around him and it makes him feel good. So he says more bullshit. But it doesn't mean it's going to come true. There's lots of reasons why this gold card thing is a stupid idea, apart from the fact that it pretty much already exists. in EB5. You know, but Trump doesn't know that. So, but as I've said many times before, if there is immigration reform, it typically requires some sort of broader immigration bill that puts a package of fixes together. There is no doubt at all that immigration needs to be fixed, but I don't think Trump is the guy to fix it, to be honest with you. He's going to try and screw it up for sure, but I don't think he's going to fix anything. He just made an announcement because Musk is his buddy. He just announced that South African farmers are going to get green cards. I mean, an announcement, a tweet. You know, he put this on a tweet that South African farmers who've been so badly treated by the government, which is bullshit, you know, they are going to be given a fast path to citizenship in the USA. It's like, okay, but does anyone want to mention to Trump that there's a whole process of laws that have to happen because you're not a freaking king? You know, like somebody whisper in his ear, hey, Mr. Trump, I'm sorry, you're kind of overstepping your authority there. You know, so yeah, do I want to talk about the gold card? Not really, because it's bullshit. Hi, Simon, if from Kenya, case 24K, am I on the safe side? Yeah, it's all about your embassy, Mr. Raymond Kashai. My case number is 10,500 from Nepal. When can I expect a 2NL? Pretty obviously, right at the end of the program, because your case number is one of the highest case numbers for Nepal, right? And your case number will be only available in probably August or September. Okay. Hi, Mr. Simon. Can you update me? A 55K selectee will be called up for interview. About 66 or 67,000 selectees, including family members, will be called for interview. Right? That number probably shocks you because you don't understand what I'm talking about. But basically, they invite more people to interview because some people don't turn up to the interview. Some people turn up but get refused. Some people turn up but get put on 221G. And you know, so they actually overschedule. They do this every year, and it works, right? And because processing is spread out over the year, that's okay. So by this time, there are already cases marked as ready status where the interview has already happened, the date has passed, but the person never showed up for interview. And so during the year, we build up this sort of noise of cases in ready status that never seem to clear out, and they never will, because people just don't turn up for their interview for many reasons. They don't have the money, they realize they're not qualified, they realize they lied in the process and they're going to get refused. Lots of reasons, right? And so, so yes, more than 55,000 people will be scheduled. 52,000 is the number of visas that will be issued, right? Hi, Brett. Moses watching from Kenya. Moses, pleased to have you, you know, listening to me. I thought you were the guy that normally writes out the commandments, aren't you? No. How is Zambia embassy performing? Have a look, Lemek. Here's the correct version of your sentence. I received my visa on March 6th. I am flying to the United States on March 11th. Is there an entry ban for Afghans starting from March 12th? Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you for that. Can travel ban affect Nepal? Probably not. Moses from Kenya still waiting for the 2NL. Sorry about that, but historically you seem to be waiting all the time. Hi, Simon. Watching from Nairobi, case number 38K. Good luck. I don't quite know what's going to happen, but good luck. Alex says, my family and I were refused DV lottery visa last year for maths questions. Can we win another DV lottery again if we play? Maths questions. If you mean by that. Alex, this rings a bell. Have we spoken before? I think we may have spoken before. I do remember a case, and perhaps it's yours, where I think a CEO administered a verbal test during the interview, which is specifically described as not not being their right to do. They are not allowed to administer a test of that sort during the interview. What this was about was there was a case I heard of, and if I believe everything that was said, the person was qualified, had paperwork to show that they had passed math and so on, which was part of the core curriculum requirement for that country. But for whatever reason, the CO didn't believe the paperwork that was sitting in front of them and asked some questions, math questions, which the person sitting in front of them should have been able to answer based on the math education level that this person was saying they had, right? Now, that whole thing is weird because the FAM guide specifically says you're not allowed to do that, right? However, there is an aspect of consular officer discretion where they can say, look, I wanted to try and see whether this person was lying to me. So I asked questions and I formed the opinion that they're lying to me. I don't trust their documentation. I think they're lying for various reasons. So you're not specifically being denied for the math questions, right? But you're being denied because they believed you're not being honest with them. In such a case, where you do have the documentation to provide proof that you've passed math and the other things, I think if you interviewed with any other CO, consular officer, on probably any other day, and probably that same CO that wasn't feeling so shitty on that day, you would probably have been passed, right? So can you enter again? You can play again, yeah, absolutely. If you're prepared to go through that again, you can definitely, Alex, play again. And you'll probably be approved, right? But if you do have bullshit documents, don't be surprised if if you're caught out with that. I'm hoping that they're not bullshit documents. The case that I remember, I am pretty satisfied that they were genuine documents, a genuine case. And if that was yours, Alex, I can't remember if it was precisely your name. But if that was your case, then I believed your story, absolutely, that you were qualified and you did genuinely have had passed the exams and so on. But for whatever reason, the CO formed an opinion that you were lying. I think that's basically the situation. Okay. Will UK be eligible for DV27? I don't know, is the honest answer. There was a 2-year dip in entries because of COVID. Not entries in, visas issued in other categories. That 2-year dip. So basically, the way that a country is made eligible or ineligible is based on a 5-year rolling window of entries in 3 visa categories outside of DV lottery, immigrant visas. Basically, they're saying, look, if more than 50,000 people combined over that 5 years entered on these 3 types of immigration, then that country doesn't need the diversity visa and therefore will be excluded. UK had been toddling on at around about 55 or maybe 60,000 over that 5-year period. But during DV 2020 or fiscal year 2020 and 2021, when the COVID situation was happening, those entries dipped tremendously. And that lowered the overall average for that 5-year rolling window below 50,000 for the UK. Now, in 2027, at least one of those years is still going to be in there, impacting the numbers. So I don't know whether there was a big pickup in the numbers later and whether UK will be allowed to stay in the lottery process in 27. So it was in there in 25 and 26. Those are 2 years that benefited from that rolling window. 27 is going to be a bit unsure for me. I think it may have recovered and will then become ineligible again. We'll have to wait and see. There was something I wanted to talk about on that. I had filed a FOIA application to find out about UK selectees in DV25, and I had tried to get them to prioritize that FOIA and expedite the process, which they do in some cases. They've just denied that request. So I will get my FOIA information, but I won't necessarily get it quickly. They're slow at the moment. So it might. I'll speak to one of the lawyers about that to see if it's worth doing something. But you can have a FOIA lawsuit, but I don't know if I want to do that. I mean, I think I can justify why you're entitled to expedite one of these requests in certain circumstances. One of those circumstances is for public good because I'm disseminating information. And so I would try and build a case around that, but I don't know for a fact that would work. It might just be a waste of time and my money. So, we'll have to wait and see. I'll have a chat with Jesse about that, I think. All right. Anyway, will the UK be eligible? Yes, I covered that one. Hi, Simon. Thanks for the help you render. Please, is 58K Cameroon safe? I can't say it's safe. I have to wait and see, I'm afraid. 45K Algeria. Case number proceeded. When can we have a 2NL? Again, you'll have to wait and see. Thanks for explaining. You're welcome. Can you talk a bit more about Trinidad, Port of Spain? How much visas are usually issued in this country? I mean, it's tiny. Visa bulletin. Oh, it's tiny. I don't think it's very much at all. What's a quick way to do this? Let's see. If we look for this year, and we look at, let's go Trinidad and Tobago, 40. So in DV25, they had 40 selectees, which probably would have been around about 20 cases, right? So, whether that's average or not, I don't know. There is, if you want to have a look at statistics like that and see historically how has Trinidad done, Google the words DV lottery statistics, and you'll see the entries and selectee numbers for years and years and years. I can do that for you. Let me show you what I'm talking about, because some people wouldn't have seen this. Let me show you. So, DV lottery statistics. Kind of interesting, and I think some of you, I've mentioned this many times, but some of you don't seem to know. So right here, you've got the number of online entries during each period, the number of selected entries for recent DV programs by year, and the number of visa issuances and adjustments of status in the diversity immigrant visa category. You can see that we're waiting for entry data for the years from 22 to 24, and you can see that the numbers typically come in 3-year reports, right? So if I show you briefly this, and we go and have a look in the data here. Oh, let's just Trinidad. Oh, not there. Where are we? Trinidad and Tobago. Right. So in each year, you can see how many people enter. This is interesting for folks, by the way. People often say, why does country A get more selected winners than country B, right? And the reason for that is because when two countries are side by side or whatever, they may not have the same number of entries. You can come and see the number of entries. So, for example, Venezuela in 2019 had 151,000 entered cases, with a further 194,000 derivatives on those cases, the 151,000, right? In the same year, Trinidad and Tobago had 5,700 with derivatives about 5,900. Right? So that tells me a couple of things. I look at this data and say, okay, there's roughly a 1-to-1 between cases and selectees. That's kind of important. The derivative rate is calculated by country, not by region. You can also calculate it by region, but it's more accurate to calculate it by country using this data. And then in this year, since this country, Trinidad, only had 5,000 and or nearly 6,000, but let's call it 5,000 for round numbers. And Venezuela had what, 30 times more, right? 10, 15, yeah, 30 times more entries, right? Then you would expect Venezuela in that year to have had 30 times more selectees, right? Now, they roughly speak, Venezuela has a higher derivative rate, but let's go have a look at the data and see if that's true. That was 2019, right? So we can see the number of selected entrants. We can go and have a look at Venezuela had 1,282 and Trinidad had 33, right? Now Trinidad therefore had about 17 winning cases out of their 5,700 entries, right? And Venezuela had 1,282 out, but that's 1,282 including derivatives at a fairly high derivative rate. So you could back those things out and you could say, okay, apply Venezuela's derivative rate at something like 2.2, right, roughly. So divide 1,282 by 2.2. That gives you the number of entries out of 151,000 entries that were successful in that year. Do the same thing to Trinidad and Tobago, but a derivative rate of around about 2. And that would give you about 17, right? Or 16. And so they got 16 out of 5,700 entries. And what you'll see is once you've adjusted those numbers, they'll be roughly the same chance of selection. That's because selection chances are identical for every country within the region. What then is different is that the behavior of people in different countries is different, meaning there are more holes created in some countries than others, because some countries are less honest, to be perfectly frank. The people from some countries think it's a really good idea to lie and cheat and everything else. And those countries would have more holes created. So that would be the only other difference between these two countries, right? So that's basically how the draw system works. But anyway, you can use this data to go look at all of the entries and all of the selectee numbers for any years you like. We'll look at 23. We'll go have a look at Trinidad there. 31 in 2023. So 40 in 25. 31 in DV23. 33 in DV19 for Trinidad. Right. So all of this data is available, folks. You can go have a look at that data. That's really weird. I'm not coming up. They've really messed this up. My little happy face doesn't come up when I'm showing you my screen. I have to do now, I presume, that, probably. Add to stage. Yeah, I have to do that now. Okay, they've changed my software a little bit. So, sorry, I was just noticing. Okay, let's see if I'm just going to ignore some of these bang questions and just see if I can find some more questions now. Stoic, obviously got to answer yours. Stoic is one of the gentlemen that was on my panel a couple of weeks ago. So good morning to you. Doing some work this morning. This great background noise. How likely is it EUVB will go up to 19.7, considering it will open up the same number of cases as jump from 13 to 16K? I'm glad you asked. Let's just put this. Oh dear, how do I do this now? Oh, I wanted to. I saw your. Oh, come on. Why is it doing that? There we go. Full screen now. And then I don't know how to do this now. This is a pain in the butt. Okay, so let me just show you what I was going to show you. I saw your math calculation, and it was a good math calculation, but it ignores a little bit of a fact, I think, right? So what Stoic had done is he said, okay, the number of cases revealed between 13,000 and 16,000. I think, Stoic, I wish you were talking to me. You're working, right? Otherwise, I'd send you an invite. But the number of cases was something like I think it was 1,800 cases that they had revealed between EU 13,000 and EU 16,000. So by making those extra 3,000 case numbers available, they make 1,800 actual cases available that were not available before, right? Okay, that's true. And you've then used that number to say, if they want to reveal another 1,800 cases, that would take you to 19,700. And it's a good theory. It's logical, but it doesn't really take into account the backlog that's already there. So I'm showing now EU, and let me just make that a little bit bigger so we can see this. Yeah. And this was true last month too, but we don't know exactly. You'd have to do a little bit more science and a little bit more analysis to know whether it's really going to work this way. But basically, you can see that in the first few thousand, you can sort of go up to about, that point, which is where Uzbekistan are current until, right? And you get that number of cases, and then you see a sort of a drop down. And I'm looking not at the selected cases, but the gap between Uzbekistan, or the gap between the where Uzbekistan is cut off, and sort of ongoing from there. And then what's the justification for a widening of that gap, right? And what I'm really talking to is whether there's a backlog in the rest of Europe, excluding Uzbekistan. And you did talk about Uzbekistan, so I know you understand this principle. But what we don't really know is how many backlog cases exist in that section there. And I'm really talking about that section. I don't think it's very many. If we looked at Narek's chart in Zarthisius's site, I love that he put that in here. Yeah. Yeah, right. So this is Narek's format of chart in Zarthisius's site. A little confusing, but but that's what that is. Why are you not opening for me? Show in folder. No, show. Just open. Why are you not opening? What's going on? Oh, it's just thinking. What's the point of me spending all this money on a computer if it takes all day to open a bloody spreadsheet? Anyway, right. So what we would have to do then is to go through the EU consulates and figure out, okay, they're all current up to 16,000. Now, which ones are up to date? Now, that one looks up to date. What's AKD? Don't know what that is. Not sure what that is. Actually, it's a bit scary. Let's look at some others. ATA, okay, that's a little bit more clear, right? So ATA, they're obviously bang up to date. No backlog at that embassy, right? Bucharest, we know also there's no backlog there. But you can see a bunch of embassies which are clearly EU embassies because they are up to the 16,000 mark, right? And so you could look at all the EU embassies and you'll find occasionally an EU embassy that is backlogged where the numbers have not reached down to the full 16,000, right? Those would be a little bit more interesting if they are big, important embassies and they are backlogged, right? In EU. Let's have a look at this. See, Colombo, that's South America. That's not really helpful. Actually, if Narek / Zarthisius wanted to make this beautiful for me, we would color code the the embassies somehow. That would be the next wonderful thing, to show which region they're in, that they are naturally in, right? Which is their region. You can kind of tell from here. CHS is clearly, it's an EU embassy. It's only got EU cases. There are others that are a bit more confusing. CHS, by the way, is one of those ones that has a minimal backlog, right? They only went up to 15,000. They got consistent numbers in every 1,000 cases, but they don't have any cases between 15 and 16,000 scheduled, which means they are very, very slightly backlogged. Not backlogged very much, but just a little bit, okay? This embassy here, DHB, not backlogged at all. And that's the EU number, right? So You can filter out and just look at EU if you want in this spreadsheet, but what I'm trying to get to is whether we've got much of a backlog in EU, and I don't think there is much. Which means if they did want to, let's say they wanted to have, just round numbers, I should try and get these numbers again. I had them last year. But let's say their capacity for EU was nominally around about 700 cases, let's say, roughly. And 1,800 cases were pretty reliably sort of filling that. You'd then have to say, yeah, but of the cases filling that 700, how many of them were previously current in previous months? So under 16,000, they're essentially backlogged cases. They could also be backlogged DS processing, but at this time of year, that's less likely. So so you could look at that and sort of figure that out and just refine your point a little bit. Your point's a good one though, Stoic. It's a good way to look at it. And they are, in previous years, they have been kind of consistent that way. You can kind of predict, if there is no DS backlog effect, particularly, you can predict month to month the next visa bulletin based on the number of cases they revealed. But you would have to take out Uzbekistan, right, to really know how many rest of Europe cases they had revealed. But anyway, long and short of it, do I think they're going to go to 19.7? I hope they do. It's a bit of a stretch goal, to be honest, right? 19 is probably about where I was thinking. Would they go to a bit more than 19? I hope so. We'll have to wait and see. There's, on the face of it, I don't think there's quite enough backlog to stop them. If there's backlog, those backlog cases take the majority of the capacity, right? If there's a lot of backlog, that's what happens. And we're not heavily backlogged. Things are working very well at the moment in most places, particularly in EU. So we're probably going to see a fairly pure number of cases being revealed equals the number of cases being scheduled. It'll be fairly pure, but we'll see. We'll see. It gets better once the DS processing is over. So fingers crossed. I know there's a couple of people that probably care about EU. So, let's see a good number. Please, in chance for AF37K, Abu Dhabi, please answer me. Thanks. In chance of AF37K. In Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi, Dubai. I mean, it's got to have a good chance, right? I mean, AF37K is going to get current without a doubt. You then just need to look at the performance of that embassy and use the tools that I've just been showing there, right? Okay. Hi, Simon, says Charles. Does the embassy really look out for your educational scores? Yes, they do. In some cases, particularly, some embassies, they are particularly sort of clear about the performance they expect from your scores. And there are some places where they'll say, look, you've got to have no Fs, let's say, and no Fs, and there's got to be good passes in these 3 core subjects, something like that. Some of the embassies have been pretty good to point out exactly what they're looking for. Now, there are often people who go to interview at those sort of places where the embassy is very clear about the high school education results they're looking for, but the person goes with a higher level degree, a bachelor's or a master's. In those cases, a CEO may look at a master's or bachelor's, and I had a question about this. I think I've yet to answer it. They may look at that and say, okay, this person has a master's. That's all we need to look at. But there are some CEOs that will look at the high school results and even disqualify someone, deny someone the visa based on bad high school results, even though that person managed to make it into a normal degree program and went on to get their bachelor's and their master's. It has happened. It's not very common, but it has happened. So there is some risk of that. But yes, for example, in the UK, you can only get into university if you've passed A levels at a certain point. You need a thing called UCAS points. And you can only gain enough UCAS points by the right combination of enough A levels. So typically 2 passes at A level wouldn't be enough to get you into a decent university, particularly if the results on those A levels were scrape by passes, right? If you got 2 A's, yeah, you can probably get into university, even though you didn't do a 3rd A level. Whereas somebody else could have 3 C's at A level in the UK, and they will probably make it into a university. They will have a place for them. So that's all to do with the UCAS points, but it's a bit particular to the one system that I know fairly well, obviously. Sajith says, I'm from Sri Lanka and one of the 2025 DV lottery winners. My case number is 18500. From Sri Lanka? Really? What do you think about my chances of getting to an L? You've got some risk, and I make that risk a little bit more clear in my prediction videos from early in January. So I suggest you go watch them. Okay. Fucking hell. Peter, I hear AF 40K and above, DS260 process stage 4. My case number is 34.7 and still stage 1 Nairobi Embassy. What is the challenge with my case processing? What can I do to see my status change? Okay. Oh, God. This whole, honestly, sometimes I get very tired of fighting rumors, and sometimes I just let the conversations continue because people won't be told when they're wrong. Some people just won't be told. And this whole thing that's going around at the moment, that AF processing has got to 44,000 or 48,000 or whatever people say. There's 2 parts to your question, by the way. I'm going to answer both parts, Peter. The first part of your question is based on this rumor that, processing has got to AF 40,000. That's a bullshit rumor, right? That is not how the fucking system works, right? And I do ignore it on the Telegram channels, and I sometimes correct it on the Brit Simon channel, the Brit Simon blog. Sometimes correct it, but I just get tired fighting with you morons about this. And there are a bunch of morons that consistently put out this this perspective that because some person has reported their processing is done at 44,000 or 48,000, that's where KCC have got to. Look, KCC will have processed some cases in the 60s and the 70s, and maybe even the 80s. We've got some cases in the 80s, right? They would have processed cases all the way to the end. They are not just going in a numerical order. And as proof of that, we've got Philip, I'm sure, who's on the live, who was processed at about EU 29K, which is equivalent to something like Africa 60,000. He was processed, I think, about a month and a half, 2 months ago. Because it's not based on, processing is not based on your case number, right? There are reasons why, and this is, Peter, this is to your next point. There are some reasons why some cases are faster than others. But it is not true to say that they have only got to case number Africa 44,000 or something. There's some person, you're not hearing from this person, but there's some person who submitted their case on day 1 and who had a very, very simple case and got processed and is sitting there with an Africa 70,000 and is processed. I guarantee that's the case, right? Because processing is not solely in case number order, right? Now, the other next assumption that people make is that scheduling is determined by where the DS260 processing has got to. Well, the first premise is bullshit anyway, and the second premise is not correct. So some people say, well, I hear case number is 44,000, therefore the visa bulletin will be 44,000 this month, right? That's what they say, right? And it's stupid. It's moronic. It's not how visa bulletin numbers are set either. So these people simply demonstrate that they don't understand common sense. They don't understand critical thinking. They don't understand how visa bulletins work. And they don't understand how DS260 processing works. That's what those people demonstrate when they say these moronic things. And yes, I get fed up of fighting with people about it, but that's the reality. right? Okay, next thing. What can you do about it? Nothing. There is something about your case. I don't know when you actually submitted your DS260, but obviously that you can cause a slowdown in your own processing by submitting late. I had a message this morning, I think it was, or yesterday, from someone who said, "I'm waiting for my processing. You know, when will I get scheduled and all this?" And I looked them up, and sure enough, they'd only submitted their case in November. Late November, I think it was, and I knew that because they had asked me some questions about the submission in another question, and I knew that the first submission only happened in November, and that's why that particular person was late. But there are some people who submitted in May and are still not processed today, both with low and high case numbers, by the way. So yours is an example that should, if those other morons were listening, they should understand that Africa processing is not, fully completed up to 44,000, because there are you sitting on 34.7K and you're not processed yet, right, Peter? So the bullshit rumor that you've chosen to listen to, Peter, about processing has got to 44,000, right, or 40s, in the 40s. You've got the proof why that's a bullshit rumor, because you're at 34.7, right? So if it was by case number, why are you not processed already? And it's because cases are different, right? Your case is different from some other case. Potentially you submitted it at a different time as well. But your case, even if submitted on the same day in early May as somebody else, your case was just going to take a longer time to process, right? That's what it is. Now, third part of your question is about Nairobi Embassy, right? Nairobi are not they're not scheduled to current levels, right? They haven't scheduled up to 30,000. There's a backlog at Nairobi that is building, and we don't know if Nairobi are going to sort that out, right? So you've got that challenge as well. You're not processed, and Nairobi are not behaving well. So those are the problems that you need to think about. Those are the challenges with your case processing. And what the actual reason is for your slower processing, I don't know. But it could be your name, it could be your profession, it could be your travel history, it could be all sorts of things, right? I do have an article at my blog that explains all the types of background checks that they go through. And what alerts them to do this type of background check or that type. And quite honestly, something in your name or your travel history or your job or something has probably caused them to want to background check your particular case a little bit longer than other people. It's unfortunate, but there's nothing you can do about it. And so you just have to hope that your DS260 is processed soon, and it probably will be, because most of the backlog now is clearing. And that Nairobi gets off its arse and starts scheduling cases. The one thing that you might want to pay attention to is that if by some chance the visa bulletin is not published on Monday, you may be able to take the opportunity to unlock your case on Monday and change your address that you're going to be scheduled at some other embassy. There are better performing embassies at the moment than Nairobi. Right? You might want to think about that, because otherwise you're going to get locked in. You're not going to be locked in on Monday, funnily enough, because you're not processed. You have to be both current and processed to get locked in stage 4. But once you're in stage 4, it's very difficult to move your case, right? So you want to think about that. Okay. Okay, thanks, Simon. You advised that I changed my address, which I did, and I got scheduled at my choice embassy. Thanks a lot, boss. Yeah, there you go. So you change your address, you get scheduled at the new embassy based on the change of address. That's, no fuss, just people listening. I'm glad you did it. Doing some work, background noise. Yes, Dirk already answered. AF64K can still email Kentucky to reopen my DS260 so I can add a newborn, including a refusal letter. Including a refusal letter? What do you mean, Elvis? You're at AF64K. Yes, you can still unlock your DS260. I don't know what you mean about a refusal letter. You can and should add your newborn. Sooner is better. Okay. This is to Paul, who is the guy. Sorry, this is from Paul to Peter. My God, we're very biblical this morning. Paul and Peter talking. So the two disciples are having a conversation, and Paul is saying, unlock and submit. This is a rumor, but I think it might be an effective rumor. There is some evidence, not sort of 100% data, but some evidence that suggests that for these cases that sit around in processing status actually could benefit from being unlocked. You make a trivial change and then you resubmit, and somehow that causes a review of your case, which then gets you processed, gets you moved along a little bit. It may be true. And I can understand why that would happen. I can imagine the system that would be in place that would cause that to happen. So yeah, this isn't bad advice. Actually, it's a little bit of a voodoo doll trick, but it might actually work, right? So, and there's no harm in it. So go ahead and do it. So that was to Paul from Peter. Sorry, to Peter from Paul. Koki, how strict are they with the money you need to have in your bank account to not become a public charge? Like, what if I have less than 10K? 25-year-old applying for myself, no kids, no partner. Okay, this will be the last question I'll take. The strictness depends on a number of factors, right? So you're single, you've got no kids, no partner, so it's just you. So having less than 10K, you've got no kids and no partner, what the hell have you been spending your money on? Stop spending your money, start saving some money. We need to talk about money. But anyway, will they be strict if you've got only $9,000 or only $7,000 savings? What they're going to do is they're going to look at the totality of the circumstances, which means that they will also look at what job you do, what sort of work do you do. Now, if you do a job that is likely to be easy to find a job in the States, then that's less of a concern. And they may accept you with a little bit less than 10,000. The 10,000 is not a hard and fast number. There's no law or rule or FAM guide number that says if someone doesn't have $10,000, you can't approve them. There's no law like that, right? So it's a bit subjective, and the law actually allows for that subjective nature of the evaluation. It's up to the CEO to decide. And in some cases, they do that based almost entirely on the person's demeanor and so on in the interview. They're asking questions. You're very bright. You're intelligent. You're obviously going to be successful in the USA. They're not so worried about the savings. They may not even ask. For other people, they may be more concerned. You've got, family members sitting there. You've got, mum, dad, 2 kids. Or if you're from Romania, maybe you might have like more kids than that. And so they're then going to say, okay, but does this person have a good job? They got lots of kids. They're going to be a public charge. In some cases, they may say, okay, that person might need an I-134, or at least be a damn fine programmer. So you can figure out whether you think your case would be passed by most CEOs. It's not entirely a sort of a black and white thing, right? Kyoko. It's not entirely a black and white thing. It's subjective, right? So yes, in some cases you'll be passed with less than 10,000. In other cases, the CEO may say, you know what, I need you to get an I-134, and then you'll have a delay while you get that. Okay, everybody. Well over the hour now. I hope you've enjoyed today's session. I have, but I need to go and do lots of jobs. I've got lots of work to do at home. Please do subscribe to my channel. It's pretty important at times like these that you know what's going on. And if you've got questions that I haven't answered, feel free to ask those questions on my blog at britsimonsays.com. Be subscribed to this channel so that you'll get latest notifications, and give me a thumbs up on this video if you could. All right. Thanks, everyone. All right. Bye-bye.